Well, good morning. Hope everybody is doing good this morning. It's a beautiful day out. Let's talk about disrespect. Now, okay, I could say don't tolerate disrespect and then end the video because that should be self-evident. But everybody knows this, yet they find themselves in scenarios all the time where they are tolerating disrespect and putting up with it, and you really shouldn't be. So first things first is people will do to you what you tolerate. You have to understand and accept that. I mean, for the most part, sometimes people will have a set of morals or values and they won't do certain things to you because that fits their values. But for the most part, what you allow people to do is what they'll do to you. So if you allow people to treat you or talk to you in a disrespectful way or act like you're not a valuable person, then that's how they'll treat you. Now, this is especially true with women, okay? When you're dating women, when you're trying to pick up on women, when you're in a relationship, if because women will test your frame all the time and test that masculine frame. They want to know, in their unconscious and hindbrain, they want to know that they're with that dominant sexual option. So they're going to try to test that all the time, and disrespect is one of those ways of testing it. You accept disrespect, well, that just became the new standard now. You see, the standard isn't what you say you want. The standard is what you tolerate. Okay, so, you may want people to treat you a certain way, but if you're tolerating different treatment, well, then that's what the standard is, not your desires. So, well, I guess we'll name a couple different scenarios, So let's say in a new encounter, like a new social situation, new encounter, you're talking to females, all right? You don't know them from anybody else, and at some point along the line, they throw out something that's a little bit disrespectful. Maybe they, maybe it's in joking, they try to mess with you, maybe they are outright mean or bitchy or, whatever. Well, first thing is, you should never, it's their opinions. I don't care if it's your wife of 20 years or some random female you meet on the street. Their opinion of who you are should have no bearing on your personal value or your understanding of your own personal value. So there's no reason to get upset about it. Okay, so that's the first thing. Really keep that in mind, that everything that they say that comes out of their mouth is bullshit. If you understand that is a 100% fact, then, and challenge me on that if you don't agree, because I have actual evidence as to how that's true. But if everything they say is bullshit, then if she makes some disparaging comment about you and you just met her, it's bullshit. It doesn't fucking matter, okay? So don't get upset about it. That's the first thing. In any sense, don't get upset. A lot of guys will get upset or indignant when, a woman is disrespectful on a first encounter, and that's, there's no investment there, so there really is no reason for that. The reason why guys will get upset or indignant is because they are looking to social proof from women to dictate their own value, which is a mistake, okay? That's number one. Or they have a scarcity mentality, and so they just don't think that let's say there's a pretty girl in front of them, and they just don't understand that there's a million pretty girls out there, and if one doesn't like you, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? There's 10 more that like you, and they're waiting for you around the corner. So that's the difference between an abundance and a scarcity mentality. So, any two of those, having that scarcity mentality or looking for social proof for females, it's going to lead people to having approach anxiety, okay? Anxiety when they talk to women or when they approach them. It'll also lead you to, anxiety or not, but being upset or mad if they are disrespectful. Or maybe not upset or mad. I'll see this a lot more often now, is they'll tolerate it, put up with it, and try to win her over. You know what I mean? Like, they'll sit there and try to win this person over after they've been disrespectful to them, because, you know, they want that social proof from this particular female. They think she's pretty or whatever, and that's what they want. So that's all a big mistake. If you're trying to win someone over after they disrespect you, if you're getting upset and all that too, those are things that aren't going to serve you very well. And it ultimately, you know, maybe not getting upset, but certainly trying to win them over is absolutely tolerating that new standard of disrespect. It's rewarding it, in fact, right? So you don't want to do any of that stuff. You don't have to get mad about it, but you can, I would laugh it off, make a joke, agree and amplify, I usually make it into something funny. Occasionally though, you know what, it's to a point, like, it depends on how bad it is or what it is. I mean, you don't have to get mad, but you might just shrug your shoulders at somebody and tell them to go fuck themselves and walk right away. You know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with doing that. So whether it's humor, telling someone to go fuck themselves or fuck off, or just shrugging your shoulders and not entertaining that person anymore, those are examples of not tolerating it, okay? So that's with a new encounter. Now, where people get really tripped up is when they're emotionally invested. We'll say emotionally, or emotionally, sexually, financially, all that stuff, like in a relationship. That's when things get a little bit more complicated. Probably the topic of another video, because see, now, more than just the topic of another video, we can talk about it more, but if you're in a situation like a marriage or a relationship where you're being disrespected, you probably need to call me up for some coaching, because you're in a dilemma, or you can't just leave that relationship. I mean, you certainly can, but that may not fit what you want to do here. You know, there's more of an investment there. So let's say she just says something disrespectful and it's your wife, you know what I mean, and you have all this invested stuff. You might not just say, okay, that's it, we're getting a divorce now. You're right. And so the stakes are a bit higher. So how do you handle and how do you communicate with that? Now, you still don't tolerate it, but you do it within the constraints or confines of the relationship. But there are levels of disrespect that women will go once they're committed. Once they're committed, there's no leverage now, or they feel that you don't have the leverage, and then they can outright just continually disrespect you and take it to high levels, and never give up on that. Never just continue to take it to the next level, and never back down from it, and never say, okay, maybe I shouldn't have talked to you that way. Like, never. I have exes that, you know, when I tolerated too much, boy, they'll still stand by their disrespect as if it was justified. And of course it never was. And in those situations, tolerating that disrespect is a lesson I certainly learned. And those are situations where I should have pushed the relationship into counseling and something more serious sooner, or left the relationship sooner. Because as you tolerate disrespect in that relationship, it gets more and more toxic. Now, of course, there are ways to illustrate that you're not okay with that disrespect. And it's not always a serious, let's have a logical conversation. Sometimes it is just separating yourself from that other person and just saying, you know what, I'm not okay with how you're talking to me. You give them a kiss and you walk out the door. Now, some will say that, you should always work it out and talk to them. Well, of course, of course. But they have to be open to talking to you. And if they're being disrespectful and they're acting in a way that's not okay, you know what I mean? And you're in a relationship, still treat them in a loving way. Of course, again, we're depending on what level here, so I'm speaking real general now. But treat them still in a loving way. Don't. A mistake that a lot of people will make is when they do separate themselves, they make it feel like a breakup. You don't want to do that, okay? For some slight, little piece of, disrespect, some slight problem. You're now going to just, make her feel like you're ending the relationship by walking out the door. You don't want that. That's hard not to do, though, because you might be angry, right? Because now you have more investment. And so the anger may not even come from looking at her as a point of validation. The anger could come from that injustice, so it's really not just to agree to be with somebody in a relationship, to put your ass on the line. Let's say you move in with them, for example, where you combine some resources, so you're putting yourself on the line, and then they decide to start treating you in a way that they never would have treated you before you made that commitment. That's an injustice. Okay, so anger is actually an appropriate response in the face of injustice. When I say that, though, I mean the feeling of anger, not necessarily how you act, the action. Okay, so you might feel angry because of the injustice. The fact that you put your ass on the line and now she's being consistently disrespectful to you, something she never would have done prior to you putting your ass on the line. Yeah, that's an injustice. You have every right to be angry about that, But does that mean you throw shit in your apartment or whatever? Does that mean you punch her out, right? No. All right. So there's a way to respond. There's a way to respond with that as well. Okay. And so you can feel angry, but having that emotional self-control and responding in a way that is productive is kind of the key to holding it together and helping both of you guys, right? Because obviously there's something wrong with her for her to treat and act that way towards you. And, maybe that's some self-improvement she needs, but you're not going to help her much with that if you're, screaming at her or creating, a situation where you lose that emotional attachment or whatnot because you're putting barriers there through your anger, you know what I mean? So whenever you have a fight or some type of a situation where you're screaming or you're angry at your woman like that, and it's a big, huge blowout, that puts an emotional barrier between you two, and that's never good. You can't persuade them to be, I say persuade, but you cannot lead them to self-improvement and treating you better if there's an emotional barrier or rift. So although anger is justified, although they are wrong, having a response that creates a emotional wedge because you're fighting, because you're yelling, or because you're making her feel abandoned by, walking out the door, which is the right answer, but doing it in such a way where she feels like it's a breakup. You know what I mean? Those are responses that are very common. They're very understandable because she's not treating you in a way that is acceptable, and it's an injustice. However, it's not going to solve your problem in the relationship either, unless you want to end it. Okay? So there's other ways to respond and to communicate with her, and to communicate that injustice and to lead her to improve. And then this is also hoping you properly vetted and picked a partner that is the type of person who will be led and will improve themselves. I've had it happen. I've seen it in different parts. I've just seen so many different situations where in the beginning, when her arousal and attraction is high, she's really working on herself and she's really willing to improve. And then once the shit hits the fan and there's a commitment, she stops allowing herself to be led, and she stops, taking ownership, and she stops that self-improvement. And what that tells me is that she never was somebody who would admit fault and improve herself to begin with. She was just doing that and putting that on that air because she really wanted something, which is that relationship. But once, of course, she got it, then those old tendencies she had of not taking personal responsibility, those all, came flooding back. And so, and women, unfortunately, I know some of you women hate when I make the generalizations, but I mean, there's a lot of generalizations we make about men too. But actually, I will say, not even just women, people in general have a real problem with personal responsibility, owning their shit, and improving themselves. And whether you're a male or a female, I highly recommend you don't get into a long-term relationship with somebody who can't face their own problems, admit to them, take ownership for them, and improve them, all right? But anyway, that's probably also a topic for another video. So there's a lot more too. It's real easy when you just meet somebody off the street to not tolerate disrespect, or when you're dating somebody to not tolerate it. It's pretty easy. You just don't call them back, or you just tell them, hey, you know what, I don't appreciate that, and then you distance yourself. Real easy if there's no combined resources. However, when all those things do combine and you're in a relationship, in a long-term relationship, and there's more of an investment, you know, it's not always productive just to end it because they had a bad day and they treated you in a way that's not good. But you still can't accept it, because then that treatment will continue anytime they have a bad day. You see, it becomes a new standard. So we got to set our standards, and we have to do it in such a way which it's productive. This is a intergender communication. This is not what you think. It's not just telling her how you feel and then asking her to be different. Okay, that's not how it works. Communication is oftentimes done through action. It's often done through tonality. That's how you communicate and it's done through listening too, okay? That's how you communicate with women on an emotional level, not just telling them what you want and then hoping that they do what you ask. So keep tuning into these videos. We'll talk, and if you have any questions, I'm talking a lot of generalities, so I do welcome questions. Send them to my inbox. Hey, what about this situation, that situation? That'll allow me to provide more specific examples on how to communicate with a woman, or a man for that matter, in a productive way, particularly if you're in a relationship or in a situation where disrespect is happening and you're in this rock and a hard place, because you don't want to just end the relationship necessarily. You don't want to go scorched earth. You think there's potential to fix these problems, but you don't know how to communicate with them and in a way where it's productive and you both are working towards fixing it. So hit me up, ask a question in comments. This will be on YouTube, so make sure you subscribe to my channel, like it. Okay, like the video, it helps me. Like my business page on Facebook if you haven't done that yet. And shoot me questions or examples that you need some help with. That's like free coaching right there, and I can do videos and help you out. I do that a lot of these videos are based off of those questions. But if you need more specific help, and especially something like this, where you're in a relationship and you have two people that are fighting or disrespecting each other on a regular basis, that relationship is on the way to its end. Okay, I promise you that. I just, trust me. So if you don't want it to end, you need to stop that bleeding. Okay, this is where you inbox me, and we set up a coaching time, and we start working through these problems, because this is something you're gonna have to work through on a weekly basis with a professional, and then implement those changes into your relationship. It's not gonna fix itself through a simple video like this. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. It's a beautiful day out here, at least in Michigan, so enjoy the sunlight. I'm excited for a good summer. I hope you guys are too. Thanks for tuning in.